Welcome to Thursday night live training. It's our weekly program of Citizens Climate Lobby that provides CCL supporters with access to in-depth training opportunities on topics relating to climate change and effective climate advocacy. This webinar is the first in a series of CCL trainings designed to help empower constituents who are planning to meet with their member of Congress with the basic knowledge they'll need to understand Congress and what it's like to lobby as a citizen. Thank you for joining us tonight. You can share in the chat where you are calling from and what brought you here. And if you're interested in looking at the slides, I've put the link for tonight's slides in the chat for you. So my name is Elli Sparks. I'm the Senior Director of Field Operations, and I've been with CCL for 14 or 16 years, depending on if you count back to when I was a volunteer. Happy to be here tonight. We have 3 learning goals tonight, and if I have done my job correctly, you will come to see the power of citizen lobbyists. Citizen lobbying matters despite its negative stereotype. Lobbying is simply a way to build relationships with elected officials, and it works. You will learn the core elements and communication techniques that make effective lobby meetings, and you will understand the various roles played by CCL volunteers in a lobby meeting. Here is our agenda. We'll first look at the purpose of a citizen lobbyist. I'll give you a little history on CCL. We will review the lobby team roles and a meeting outline. Now, we also, like I said, this is the first training in a series of trainings, and you can see on this page here on the slide the list of trainings, and I'm going to put in the chat some links for you. You'll find all of these trainings listed on the Preparing for Fall Conference link. We've got a special youth lobby training for people under 18 coming up on October 26th. That's a Sunday. So if you have some young people in your chapter, encourage them to attend. And there's a recording. In the fall, we encourage lobby teams to see if they can find a trusted messenger to bring along. And so there's a little recording on that training for you. Alrighty, so let's start by considering the purpose of citizen lobbyists. So you may be wondering why we lobby as citizens. There's a simple reason why we have the stereotypes associated with lobbying and why companies pay so much for lobbyists. It works. Successful lobbyists, whether they are paid professional or a passionate citizen, develop relationships. And fortunately, you don't need millions of dollars to develop relationships. Our founder, Marshall Saunders, learned firsthand the power of citizen lobbyists from his experience as a results volunteer, where he had lobbied Congress to solve poverty across the globe. Marshall had been a results volunteer for a number of years when he learned about climate change. He had also been a founder of a microcredit loan program in Mexico. It occurred to Marshall that all of the work he had done in helping to solve poverty would literally be washed out to sea with the sea level rise associated with climate change. So Marshall decided to apply to climate change what he had learned as a results volunteer. Ordinary people like you and me, said Marshall, have to organize, educate ourselves, give up our hopelessness and powerlessness, and gain the skills to be effective with our government. Now I'm going to let Marshall speak to us a little bit with his own words.
And it is trusting that ordinary people can get the job done. It's a trusting in ordinary people. You know, not people who have made it, not people who are powerful, but ordinary people. You know, and if people are not demonstrating that, well, they can't. They can't. They need a little encouragement, a little breakthrough, like I had. So It's one step at a time.
Oh, I love that. All right. So I'm going to also put in the chat a link where you can dig a little deeper into Marshall's legacy if you didn't have the chance to meet him when he was alive. He passed away just before COVID hit. All right. So Marshall had asked the Results founder, Sam Daly Harris, to advise him in creating Citizens Climate Lobby. And Sam agreed and became a long-term trusted advisor for us. Sam is the author of the recently reissued 2024 anniversary edition of Reclaiming Our Democracy, Every Citizen's Guide to Transformational Advocacy. In this book, Sam shares how he and the citizen advocacy organizations he has founded or coached have catalyzed the energy of thousands of volunteers to score significant legislative and policy wins. With all the negative news on climate and Congress, Sam writes in his book about Citizens Climate Lobby, it's understandable to feel discouraged. But hopelessness is not a strategy for making a difference, and neither is acting alone. Citizens Climate Lobby is the antidote, the missing link, the Harvard of citizen activism. Sam uses the term transformational advocacy to describe results and Citizens Climate Lobby. He says that transformational advocacy creates supported opportunities for volunteers to push through preconceived limits of what they can achieve. Hearing other people talk about their breakthroughs helps us imagine what is possible. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And I'm going to put in the chat for you a link to Reclaiming Our Democracy if you want to dig into that further. There we go. All right, so let's move on to the next important topic we want to speak about tonight, and that is the importance of building relationships with the members of Congress and their staff. So Andre Milwar is a math teacher at Tunix Community College, a co-leader of Connecticut District 1 chapter, Congressional liaison, and a resident of West Hartford, Connecticut. And he loves to connect with people over climate and is excited to be building a better future.
I'm Henry Millward. I'm a math teacher from West Hartford, Connecticut. I got involved with climate change out of concern, for my children's future. I've been doing so much to kind of prepare them educationally, but I realized that even more fundamental is having a livable climate in the future where they can thrive and grow and have the wonderful luck and experiences that I've been fortunate to have in my life. I started with CCL about 2 years back, and I still remember my first legislative call. I was so nervous. I have been relatively apolitical all my life, and hadn't had any kind of experience talking with representatives or senators. But CCL really makes it so easy. The leadership here in Connecticut pulled me into the meetings. They had practices, so I would kind of know my exact role at the beginning. I, of course, had small roles, ones that I could handle, that I felt comfortable with, and had 2 very successful meetings with representatives and senators here in Connecticut. As we move forward, I started taking on larger and larger roles in the meetings to the point where now I'm the legislative liaison for Connecticut District 1. So it's kind of fun to have newer members of CCL come in with the same apprehensions that I did, and being able to assure them that this is kind of a great and empowering experience to be able to talk to your representatives. And there's a role, no matter how big you want to play, there's a role for you. And my job, as now part of the leadership, is to help match you to that role. I feel like where lobbying really started to take off for me was when I became the legislative liaison for my representative in my district. We, of course, have the meetings that occur twice a year, and those are wonderful, and I always get a high after every single meeting. But of course, sometimes you don't know exactly how much influence you have in the meetings, or where the discussion that you have with your representative goes. And they have a lot of different concerns to take care of in their district, and we know we're just one of many, and we're just trying to make them aware of what our feelings are, and represent the people interested in carbon pricing in the district as much as possible. But where it really started to feel like I had a relationship with my representative was kind of the in between. As a legislative liaison, part of the process is to establish an ongoing communication with my representative. And I remember writing the first. I try to write an email a month, and I remember writing the first one, not knowing whether it would be appreciated or annoying to my representative. But in fact, it was reciprocated and returned, not with a kind of a form letter, but with genuine appreciation. I had brought attention to something that had happened in district, and that the representative wasn't aware of. And so we just have this little monthly exchange. He lets me know what he's up to, and I let him know about anything that's going on in the district that he might not know about. And it really starts to feel like a reciprocal relationship instead of us just kind of going and feeding them information, and them may or may not be acting.
That's great. Thank you, Andre. All right. So, from Andre's example, how do we go about building long-term, meaningful relationships with our members of Congress or their staff? Dale Carnegie's training taught the best way to win friends and influence people is to understand someone else's problems and interests. This advice still rings true today. As advocates, it's important for us to understand how to influence someone. And we heard Andre describe how he shares with his contact there in the member of Congress's office news from the district, which is a need that the member of Congress has, what's going on in the district. So he was meeting a need. As an advocate, you'll be much more powerful by starting a conversation by asking about the congressman's child who just went to college, or mention that you saw her picture in the newspaper recently at a ribbon cutting, or congratulate them on a recent legislative accomplishment. So remember, part of the reason that lobbyists are so successful at their jobs is because they know the issue. They become trusted advisors or policy experts, and we can do that as well. We have specific information regarding how our policy will impact their state or district. No one else has that information. Every congressional office knows those in-district advocates who stay on top of issues and don't hesitate to offer help or advice on how a legislator should vote. Keeping in regular contact with your legislators provides a valuable service to the legislators and staff and keeps them accountable to voters. Finally, the CCL way is to always operate with respect, appreciation, and gratitude. It's not just a slogan, it's the cornerstone of who we are and how you build relationships. The most valuable gift a lobbyist gives a member of Congress isn't a campaign contribution. It's a detailed analysis of how a particular issue affects the lawmaker's district or state. Some state associations, nonprofits, and corporate leaders may offer this data, but they can't pair it with a personal story that centers on the human experience of an issue and why it matters to you and your family. And we can say with certainty that very few beyond our own volunteer network is identifying and researching how climate solutions like a strong price on carbon with a cashback to American households affects our legislators' constituents. This is our most valuable tool. We have the information and are trained on how to communicate about the benefits and strengths of any bipartisan climate solution we bring to a lobby meeting. At CCL, we believe that politicians don't create political will, they respond to it. Therefore, it is our job as constituents to create so much political will that politicians have no other choice but to act on climate solutions. Members of Congress and their staff can't know everything about a topic, especially all of their constituents' concerns. Our country values and encourages citizen engagement. We consider it our right and duty to engage in the political process. Studies by the Congressional Management Foundation repeatedly show that the most effective way to impact your member of Congress is through face-to-face meetings with a constituent. We know that it is not possible for a member of Congress or their staff to know every detail about various policies. They rely on others to inform them, and that's one reason we meet with them. The other thing to consider is this: if we are not meeting with them, who is? Professional lobbyists meet with the office frequently, and so should we. Lobbying is simply expressing your voice and making the case for what you want Congress to do. There are two types of constituents, and they are not always given equal weight. So let me give you an example. Let's say you are attending a town hall meeting, like the folks in this picture, and a fellow constituent stands up and says, "I think we should reduce our greenhouse gas emissions." That's a constituent with an opinion, and the Congresswoman will file that in one part of her brain. But if the same constituent says, "I think we should reduce greenhouse gas emissions because my 3-year-old daughter has respiratory problems, and I'm worried about the health impacts on her developing lungs," the Congresswoman is likely to store that story in a completely different compartment in her brain. The person has a much stronger bond to the legislator, and the Congresswoman has a much greater obligation to integrate her concerns into the decision-making process. The lesson here is that constituents with a genuine interest and a personal story are more likely to have influence than those who are just voicing their opinion. A survey of congressional staffers from the Congressional Management Foundation finds that constituents who are able to express an interest and a story, not just an opinion, have more influence. So let's take a quick look at some of the differences between CCL lobbying and professional lobbying. And here we have, and where we have an advantage. Paid lobbyists are doing this work for the money, whereas citizen lobbyists, like you and me, are people who live in the community that the member of Congress represents. Paid lobbyists have an opinion, whereas citizen lobbyists are passionate about their interests and have a personal story to share. Paid lobbyists live in or near DC, far from the state or district that the member of Congress serves. Citizen lobbyists come to DC occasionally, but they live and work and play and worship in the district or state that the member of Congress serves. The take-home message is that we are offering something very different than what is traditionally done by big lobbying firms. And we can play our advantage by being our genuine selves in our lobby meetings. At CCL, we like to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. After all, who would become a citizen lobbyist if we all decided to stay within our comfort zone? As American author Neil Walsh says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So if you're feeling uncomfortable right now, know that the change taking place is a beginning, not an ending. Or in CCL, we say, step outside of your comfort zone because that is where the magic happens. All right, so let's take a look at this video of our CCL volunteers from Illinois.
You had told me 1 year ago that I would be in DC meeting with multiple congressmen and attending this national convention. I would have simply never believed you.
I mean, I'm so grateful that I was able to lobby with my representative in Congress multiple times now.
Strength in numbers, right? As long as we have a group of people who are together focused, visiting Washington, visiting the senators or, all the congressmen, putting across our point, that's where I think the value is.
And that is also very exciting to be part of that and understand that that's how they learn. That's how politicians learn what's important to us.
You would think that the politicians would lead, but that's not the way politicians work. Politicians don't lead the wave, they ride the wave. So it's our job to create the waves for them to ride on.
And I think that it's like that balance between the individual's impact and the group's impact. Like the bigger the group is, the louder our voices are, the more calls, the more emails, the more lobby meetings, the more people that show up to the lobby meetings. It makes our voice stronger. And so each individual that makes the group bigger and adds in their voice is important.
All right. Very good. Okay, so in CCL, I'm going to put another link in the chat for you here in a sec. In CCL, we are all about building relationships with our members of Congress and their staff. And one of the ways we do this is by scheduling meetings with the member of Congress and their legislative staff. We schedule lobby meetings in the summer when we all go to DC for our National Summer Conference and Lobby Day. And we schedule lobby meetings in the fall. Our fall lobby meetings happen on Zoom, just like our National Fall Conference. The fact that we meet on Zoom for our fall lobby meetings means we can invite local trusted messengers to join us in the lobby meetings. It also means that people who can't make it to DC in the summer to lobby can join in on lobby meetings via Zoom in the fall. If you have not registered for the conference for the fall, please do so. I will put a link in the chat for you right now. The key to our success is building long-term relationships with members of Congress and their staff. And key to building relationships is to know your audience and find common ground. When we look for common ground, we start in 3 places. We look for shared values, we look for social connections, and we look at the places we care about. Finding common ground is easier if you do your homework and have some ideas in mind before you walk in the door or meet on Zoom. It can start on the most simple level. If you have kids, consider that most members of Congress have children and care about kids and are concerned for their future as well. So during meeting introductions, mention your own kids or grandkids. On social connections, we learn about the people we meet with in advance. So we find out about their former jobs, schools they attended, clubs and interests. You can also do this at the start of the meeting by asking the aide or staffer to tell you about themselves. It's not just being polite. These are things we really want to know. If there's a hometown or college connection with somebody on our lobby team, then you can mention that connection. And that's how you build long-term relationship. It helps everyone to relax, it helps to build trust, and it gets them talking about themselves so we know our audience even better. And lastly, common ground can also be a place we love or the member of Congress or staffer loves. Particularly think about places in the state that they represent that you all might love. Now you are ready to build relationships with your members of Congress and eager and excited to serve on a lobby team. What will you be doing on the lobby team, you might wonder? Let's look at the various roles and responsibilities that CCL volunteers play in a lobby meeting. So depending on the size of the lobby team, an individual may fill multiple roles. Everyone is encouraged to participate in the discussion, but keep in mind that the most powerful voices in the meeting will be the constituents and trusted messengers. So we have a leader for the lobby team. We can think of the leader like a conductor. They're there to manage, not dominate the meeting. They don't talk the most. They empower everyone to share and participate. They'll keep the conversation on track and wrap up when appropriate. The appreciator. Doesn't it make you feel nice when you meet someone and they say something nice about you? How does that change the way you listen? This is the role of the appreciator. The time monitor. Someone keeps the meeting on time. They monitor the percent of time that CCL and the member of Congress or staff talk with a target of 50-50. And they tally the number of open-ended questions our team asks for the meeting minutes. Open-ended questions. Who, what, where, when, how. Note taker. We need someone taking notes for meeting minutes. If possible, the note taker should be an experienced volunteer. This person should be able to follow the thread of the conversation, especially capturing what's said by the member of Congress or the staffer. We have the asker. This is the lobby team member who presents the ask, what we're asking of the member of Congress. You will walk through, if possible, someone who has strong grasp of our policy and its wider implications and ripple effects, the asker leaves a handout behind if you are meeting in person. Follow up. This lobby team member sends follow-up meeting materials and a thank you card. If the person doing the follow-up is not the congressional liaison, they should coordinate on the follow-up items with the liaison soon after the meeting. You might also designate someone as the photographer. And if you're on Zoom, you can certainly do that and get permission from the member of Congress or staffer. And if you're in person, you would have someone delivering any extra materials, the deliverer. I'm going to put in the chat a link to additional training on lobby team roles. You're welcome to look at that later. All right, so planning the meeting. We want to research the member of Congress in advance, and we have done this for many members of Congress, so you will probably find that your liaison can share this with you, a member of Congress profile that we have for members of Congress. As a team, you'll want to get together and set a goal for your lobby meeting. What are you hoping the member of Congress will do? What might you bring up as open-ended questions? Who's going to fill which particular role? And what is the goal of the meeting? And then, of course, you want to practice, practice, practice. So get together on Zoom and practice having that meeting with your member of Congress. Maybe someone can even play the role of the member of Congress. You should bring some notes if you'd like, but you're not looking for scripts. You don't want to be reading verbatim anything you've written, but you might want to have notes, and that's pretty easy to do on a Zoom call. All right, so let's look at what to include in the lobby meeting agenda. So lobbying, as we have demonstrated so far, is a team sport. We work together to build the relationship with each member of Congress and their staff. And we start the meeting by thanking the member of Congress or the staffer for meeting with us. Then the timekeeper asks, how much time do you have for this meeting? And takes note of that. We introduce ourselves briefly around the room. If meeting with a staffer, then we might ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves. We show appreciation for something that they've done recently that you sincerely appreciate. It doesn't have to be about climate or environment. Then we explain our purpose to create the political will for a livable world. We briefly state our request and deliver it. And then we move on to section number 2, where we have a listening and discussion. Here's where we ask the open-ended questions. We might have pulled some of those together in our planning meeting, but we also want to be flexible based on the conversation and how it flows. We want to reflect back to the member of Congress so that they can feel that they've been heard, or the staff, or what I'm hearing you say is, and you can reflect back, have I got that right? So we want to do that kind of reflective listening, open-ended questions and reflective listening. Then explore any secondary asks as building blocks. Our primary ask might be too big of a step for them, and that's okay. We ask for secondary asks, which might be easier steps for them to take. And then we offer any additional materials and ask if they would like us to forward by email if we're meeting by Zoom, or if we're meeting in person, we might ask if they want a hard copy. And we will confirm then how to follow up and thank them for their time. So those are the 3 major components and their subcomponents for a meeting agenda. Now, after your meeting, you want to do a debrief. Stay on the Zoom line or hop on another Zoom line if you're using Zoom, or meet down the hall if you're in the halls of Congress, and review the notes. The note taker has taken notes and they want to make sure that they've gotten everything accurate. And so let them read their notes to you and confirm that those are accurate. And then just to confirm who is doing the follow-up, who's putting the thank you card together, who is logging the meeting minutes online with CCL, who is following up with the office, any social media post you might do, who's following up with the liaison, congressional liaison. All right. So you have begun, you are on the path, you're moving forward with Marshall's message. People like you and me need to take our education, powerlessness, and hopelessness into our own hands in order to be the most effective with our government. Amidst all the details you've just learned, here are a few key takeaways. Citizen lobbying matters. Despite its negative stereotype, lobbying is simply one way to build relationships, and it works. It doesn't take money to be a great lobbyist, simply an awareness and recognition of what matters and which approach works best. We have advantages as citizen lobbyists. Our members are eager to hear from us as their constituents and listen to us in a different way than they listen to paid lobbyists. They recognize the value we offer as eyes and ears in the district and as educated resources on issues they care about. There are particular approaches that can help us be most effective. Getting to know your congressional office, becoming a trusted advisor, communicating frequently, showing up, being visible, and demonstrating respect, appreciation, and gratitude all go a long way towards reaching our goal. The Dalai Lama says, if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. So just a reminder here for you that you can save the chat. We put a bunch of links in the chat there. Oh, I'm going to put 2 more links in the chat for you right now. You can find the recordings on this page. It will take a day or 2 for those recordings to get up in the Preparing for the Fall Conference page. I've also put a link in the chat for you. Please click on that second link and it will automatically log your attendance on this training, and it helps us to know if we're doing a good job getting the word out and letting people know about these trainings, and helps us to know who has attended. If you, and you're welcome to share with your other chapter members the recording. So it helps us for y'all to invite other folks to come and join. All right. Thank you all for attending. We're so glad you came.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration.
Like what you hear? Recommend us to your friends and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us show up on other listeners' feeds. Feel free to pass on any suggestions for future episodes in the comments as well.
And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.